Good morning and welcome to Chimolang's and GetDesk's latest webinar entitled Qualifying to the Top US Universities. I'm your host, Tariq Natasmi, and today I'm joined by three of my good friends, all of whom have gone to Kolej Yayasan Saad class of 2019 and Kolej Yayasan UEM class of 2022. First, we have Puteri Amran. She has received offers from Wharton, UC Berkeley, and UCLA. Next, we have Muiz Zafri. He has received offers from UC Berkeley and UCLA. And last but not least, we have Saiful Azhar, who has received offers from Princeton and UCLA. Hi guys, how are you doing today?
Doing great. Thanks for having us.
Talk to the weekend.
Cool. Before we go on with the webinar, me and the audience would like to know you guys a bit more. Could you introduce yourselves and talk a little bit about your educational background? Maybe Azhar could start us off.
Yeah, sure. So hi, my name is Saiful Azhar. You can call me Azhar. I did SPM in KYS and graduated in 2019, and currently under a Shell Malaysia scholarship at Kolej Yayasan UEM doing A-levels, which we have just completed last week. And I'll be going to Princeton University to do chemical engineering.
Thanks, Azhar. Could you introduce yourself a bit?
Sure. Hi, guys. Nice to have you all here. My name is Muiz Zafri, but people usually refer me to as Muiz. I also just completed my A-levels yesterday, actually. Was my last paper. I am planning to continue my studies in UC Berkeley, hopefully doing a degree in economics. And I did my SPM at KYS as well with Azhar. He was my classmate back in 2019. So yeah, nice to hopefully be able to share with you a lot of tips and ideas on how to apply to the US today.
And last but not least, we have Amran.
Thank you, Tariq. Okay, hi everyone, good morning. So similar like to Muiz and Azhar, I too graduated from QIS and KYUEM. And I actually am planning to pursue economics as well at the University of Pennsylvania. And in KY, just to add on a bit, I did A-levels in maths, further maths, economics, and physics. So nice to have you guys all here, and like hopefully you guys get some tidbits on your application from my student.
It was great, guys. So before we start on the application process questions, I'd like to ask my friends here, was attending top universities in US always the plan? And why did you choose to study in US in the first place? What's so unique about going to these universities? Maybe Muiz could give us your opinions on that.
All right, sure. I think studying in the US has a lot of benefits to it. It's quite different from the educational experience we're quite used to here in Malaysia, or more contemporarily, a lot of people like to go to the UK, to Australia. I think the main difference of what US universities provide to their students is a liberal arts education, in which you are not confined to the degree or major that you applied to. Especially during your pre-university years. So for example, if you were a A-level student or an IB student and you were to apply to a university in the UK, you would have to pick a specific course, like for example, economics. And for the next 3 years, you would have to pursue that specific degree. But in the US, I think you're provided the opportunity, despite doing a major on the side. For example, you want to do chemical engineering, but on the side, you could also do a minor in something more enjoyable, for example, arts, for example, or if you wanted to do music on the side. So that's something that's provided to you. And that flexibility was what attracted me to study in the US in the first place. And something that I really appreciate in terms of discovering myself intellectually.
Azhar, okay, to add on?
Yeah, definitely. So I concur with Muiz with, studying two things at the same time, because I personally, even though I want to pursue chemical engineering, there are definitely a lot of intellectual areas where I want to gain knowledge on, and don't want to confine myself to a certain area. So for example, right now I do hope to pursue chemical engineering, but at the same time do a minor in entrepreneurship. So it's these different skill sets that I'll gain through my university experience. And it's very nice in the US compared to, I guess, other universities, is because there is a structure in place so that students can follow, and it makes it easier for you to gain these different skill sets, which would be helpful not only, I guess, in the working force, but as well as, as a development, yours as a personal development.
And finally, can we hear from Hannah, her views on the question?
Yeah, sure. Thank you, Tara, again. So yeah, I think I agree with both Muiz and Azhar. I think I speak for most, if not all, the US applicants that we like. All of us, like, we loved the US education style because it's very different from what we all grew up in the Malaysian education system. But like, to add on, like, other than that, actually, like, I remember like Tara asking if US was always the plan. To me, it wasn't. So I'm just like telling you guys here all today that it's okay if you don't know if you want to actually apply to the US, because like, even for me, I think that I was grateful for the opportunity for my scholarship to apply to the US. So that intrigued me to actually apply, but it wasn't really always a plan. I thought I was always going to go to the UK because that was like an easier path compared to like US application, which we will go through in this webinar. But like, it's okay to be scared, but it's okay to be hopeful as well, because I would say that, like, as Azhar and Muiz has shared, there's so many benefits from the US education, and it's really a worthwhile shot actually at applying to these US universities.
That's great to hear. Well, that brings me to the questions that the audience have registered for, the application process. So maybe since you all three went through pretty much the same process, maybe Muiz, could you tell the audience and myself also, I've never gone through this process, the step-by-step application process to go to these universities in the US?
Right. So this is probably something new for a lot of people, especially the high school graduates, or if you're in high school now. So I'm gonna try to compress this in about 2 to 3 minutes, but I hope that Azhar and Hannah can also cover me out if I miss something. So I guess in general, right, the period of application every year would start around August and finish around January the next year. So 1st of January, that's like around the average timeline period or the window for you to apply to the US. So every application has its portal. So for example, universities in the UK has its UCAS, and applications to Malaysia has UPU, for example. So similarly, the US has this thing called the Common App application, or alternatively, the Coalition App application. So and there's also the UC application. So I'll explain to you what this actually mainly consists of. So the Common App and the Coalition App basically covers universities like the Ivy League universities like Princeton, Harvard, Northwestern University, which is in an Ivy League, but it's also a university under the Common App and the Coalition App. And then under the UC system, which is the University of California system, is the application that you can apply to UCLA, to UC Berkeley, UC San Diego, and I believe there's about 8 other universities. So these are the places that you can actually put in all your personal details, all your co-curricular involvements, and a lot of additional things that I'll explain later as well. So between the period of August and January, there are a couple of deadlines that you have to keep in mind. So firstly is the early decision, early action, and restrictive early action deadline, which is on the 1st of November. So what this basically means is that there are a number of universities that will allow you to submit their applications relatively earlier compared to other universities. And then on the 30th of November, there is a deadline for the UC application, which is for the University of California. And then on the 1st of January, on average, sometimes universities fluctuate from 1st to 5th of January, there is the regular deadline. So as many as all the other universities that you wanted to apply to initially can be submitted before this deadline. I think a few things to keep in mind is an application checklist. I don't think that there's a perfect way to frame it, but I guess things that you have to keep in mind is firstly your academic transcripts. I think the main thing that differs from the applications to the UK or Canada is that the US actually looks at your transcripts from 9th grade, which is about Form 3. So yeah, it's quite daunting to hear in the first place. I think I got quite scared because I had to submit my scores from Form 3, PT3, all the way up to my pre-university days. There is also a co-curricular list. So this is where you submit a level of participation, the category of that co-curricular activity, and also a short description, probably around 200 characters, that you could describe what these co-curricular activities are about. There's also additional exams that you can keep in mind, the optional SATs, which we'll probably cover a bit more in the webinar later. And then there are also teacher recommendations and also primarily your main essay, which is your personal statement, and also supplemental essays for specific universities. So I guess that's what I can say about the US application as a whole.
Wow, they really check grades from since 9th grade, so pretty much Form 3 lah. Well, I wish I heard this back then, so maybe my life would have like gone through a bit of a different course. Speaking about they checking our grades and all. What are the exams that you need to take during this application actually? Maybe Azhar could explain a bit about that.
Sure. So there isn't a specific exam you need to take for you to actually enter the US. So there are a lot of pathways, I would say, for you to actually get into a university in the United States. So for us, for example, we did A-levels, but there are people who are doing IB, there are people who are doing SACE, there are people who are doing all the OSMET. So there's a lot of pathways for you to actually apply into the US. It doesn't matter like a specific exam per se, because in the end, you'll still have to give like a description of your exam and the grade. So they will have a rough idea on how you were assessed in your time, whether or not it's in pre-university or in high school. So we differ a bit from US students, the ones applying in the US, because they have an exam called Advanced Placement or AP. So AP tests are usually a college level test. So that's the same as us doing pre-U in Malaysia, under whether or not it's the Australian system or doing under the Cambridge system. The AP style or the level is around the same as what we do here in pre-university. And I guess we can stray a bit into the SATs. For us, it was a bit SAT optional. So SAT is a sort of a different exam that US students usually take to enter the US. But because of COVID restrictions, we were generally asked to, it was an optional kind of test to do. So you didn't really have to do the SATs. And for the following years, for 2023, I think a lot of colleges will also still have it optional, but that's up for you to research on. And if I'm not mistaken, Harvard will have it until like 2026. So yeah, it looks like they're straying away from the SATs.
Speaking of the SATs, do you guys think that the SATs are absolutely needed, or if you think you can make it, the SATs are not as crucial as one might think? Maybe Hannah, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, sure. I mean, yeah, so all three of us here actually we did the SAT. So we did submit our SAT scores for all our applications actually. But I think if you were to ask my personal opinion, though I might not say this for like the for everything. I would suggest you to still do SATs because I've read somewhere that like if like you should only do it optional if like you don't have the opportunity to do SATs, because like back then, like Azhar said, there was like the pandemic restrictions and then the like test centers weren't open. So that's why they actually started the SAT optional in the first place. But I think if you can, you should still try to do SATs as far as you can, because in a sense that it also just like shows that you're like put more effort into your application, and as well as like the only school by far I know actually that has an still requires SATs, MIT. So like in a sense that I still think that they still use SATs as a way to like assess your application, like in the sense of like your academics wise, because like as Muiz mentioned earlier, you can apply using any exam style, so you can use IB or A levels, but like so it's really different for them for all these systems. So I think for them SAT is an easier way to like standardize everyone's like intellectual level, I would say. So yeah.
Okay, thanks for that clarification, Anna. Well, talking about grades and all, how are the academic grades and extracurricular activities being assessed during your application? Are they like more academic focused, or do they look at both extracurriculars and your academics in a fair like 50-50?
I don't think it's a 50-50 sort of thing. I think the US applications are definitely very holistic. So I guess this is what differs from UK. If like UK, you know, if you get predicted 4 A stars, then it's most likely you're gonna get into really good uni. But for the US applications, just because you've been scoring throughout your high school as well as your A levels, it doesn't guarantee you a spot in the university, because there are the essays that you do, and there are the extracurricular activities and teacher recommendations as well. So all of these are important aspects, and you can't really give like a percentage towards how much each aspect is important towards the application. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. So I agree. So I think like the most important thing about US applications is the holistic concept of it. So like, because you have to put so much into like when you're even entering your application, you have to put your extracurriculars, you have to put like your honors and awards that you receive. Because I would say that US application is like, especially if you like applying to the top universities, is because everyone applying is already smart. So like consider like your academics is like your first barrier, but like in a sense that doesn't differentiate you anywhere across any other applicants. Because what US universities essentially look at is your personality, and how do they like try to look at your personality, whether you will or will not thrive at their school, at their own environment, is through your extracurriculars, things you do, your essays especially, because those are the things that you can show yourself and who you want, like which part of you do you want like the schools to see you in. So I would say that like every single aspect that you put into your application, which are also like the teacher recommendations, because they also want like a perspective of you from like a third person, which is at your college, a counselor, and also your like teachers who would know you better. In that sense, so like every single aspect has doesn't really have a weightage to it, but like a specific weightage to it. But every aspect that you put into every single word that you put into your application really matters a lot.
Thanks for that, Hannah. Just curious, what are the, since you guys just finished your A levels and your results are like in a month, what exactly are your conditions on your offers?
I think I can answer that. The thing about US universities is that because they've done such a long background check on you, on your academic progress from 3 as I mentioned just now, they don't really have strict conditional offers. For example, in the UK, what I mean by strict is that you can, for example, the UK, when you are given an offer from the University of College London, for example, your conditional offer to do that, to continue with that degree is about 3 A's for the A levels. So let's frame that as strict in this context. So in the US, because they've done such a long background check, they don't really have a really strict conditional offer. So for me, my conditional offer to go to UC Berkeley is to just, in general, just maintain a strong academic record. And they said that I should only inform them if I get anything lower than a C for my A levels. So that provides me a lot of cushion to probably do my A levels in a more relaxed manner, I guess. So the US actually appreciates that you provide a long background check on your academic transcripts so that they can trust that you're going to continuously do well, even though that you're not given a very strict conditional offer.
Okay, cool. That sounds way more comfortable than I previously thought. Well, I also know that similarly to the UCAS applications, which I have personally done, you guys have essays to do, but I've heard it's a bit more specific. So can maybe Azhar describe a bit on the essay portion of the application and what are the the key elements that you should put in, because most of us would write just pretty words and relevant things. So maybe you could give some advice on that.
Yeah, sure. So in general, for the Common App essay, that means there's one essay that you'll send to all of the universities under the Common App, and each university will have their own supplementary essays, which will take around like 3 to 4, some even ranging to like 8 essays. And there are different type of essays. Some of it can be fun, for example, like what brings you joy in life, and it can be like 50 words. So it might seem like an easy question, but you have to put so much thought into those 50 words. Every single word counts. And there can be essays that are really long, which want to, look at your intellectual ability. So for example, what's an academic interest that you had that's outside of your school syllabus? So there's also like personal essays to like name a time where you had to be sensitive around a certain topic, or when you were having like a conversation with someone. So there's a lot of aspects that you have to look at, but I feel that something that's really important is you have to be true to yourself, because these admission officers, they can definitely read through whether or not you're lying, whether or not you're saying things that you don't actually mean. So when writing the essays, what I personally advise is for you to look back and reflect on your life. What are the moments that you felt that you need to showcase, you need to highlight about yourself, which elements in your life that are really important. And I think me and Muiz and Hannah have gotten the ability to show than tell, which means that you don't want to explicitly say, oh, I'm a very hardworking person, or I really love engineering because of this, but you want to tell a story, and in that story, they can extract certain aspects from you without you explicitly saying that you have these qualities within yourself.
Well, speaking about essays and all, Hannah, could you remind myself and the audience the platforms that you guys use? Like, for example, in Malaysia we have UPU, and for the UK we have UCAS. And how is the US system differs from these two systems of application?
Right, sure. Okay, so like Muiz mentioned earlier, so there are a couple of platforms for the US application, but like the main one is the Common Application for like the Ivy Leagues or like most of the unis in the US actually, except for notable ones are except for MIT and also the University of California, which are the UCs. So I'll just talk about the UCs first, because like that's what most of the people I know apply to. So the UCs have essentially like 4 essays. So instead of like UCAS and like for UCAS, so UCAS you only have one main personal statement, but like in the UCs you have 4 different essays based on the prompts that they give you. So like for the UCs, they give you like around 10 prompts, and you can choose like any prompt, any 4 prompts from the 10 prompts. So like the prompts given are like state about like what is your academic interest, like show us a time when you showed like leadership experience, etc. So like those kind of prompts, which can give you like different sides of you, different aspects, different perspective into who you are as a person. So that's really what you want to showcase in this kind of essays. So how does it really differ from like the UCAS? I would say I think that's the easiest way to gauge, because like in the UPU you don't really have an essay to write, if I'm not mistaken. So for the UCAS, you have to only write 1 personal statement, but in the US, you have 1 personal statement as well as like school-specific essays, which are basically the supplemental essays. So the supplemental essays normally gauge around 2 to like up to like 8 per school, so that like a total of like 9 essays per school, including the main Common App essay. So like these supplemental essays can range about to like what's your academic interest? And we're like, most of them are like, why this school? So why you want to like show them like, why do you think you're fit for that school? Because like I said earlier, I think that US application as a whole, it really depends on if you are meant to be with that school, if that school wants you and you want that school as well. So yeah, that I would say is about like what the differences are, but like the essays between the UCAS and also like the US application.
If I could just add on to Hannah there, I think what mainly differentiates between the UK and the US application system would probably be that the US application is a very research-heavy process. I think that, as Hannah mentioned just now, that you would have to answer questions or essays ranging from like around 200 to 300 words, which isn't a lot if you realize, for you to be able to prove why you're meant for that school or why you really want to go into that school. Is it because of a specific department in that school? Is it because Wharton, for example, has a really good business program, for example? So these are things that you have to be able to identify through researching through their websites or going on student blogs on YouTube. So there are a lot of resources that you can actually tap into in order for you to ideate your own essay on your personal experience of why you feel that you should be accepted as a student in that specific school. So how this differentiates from the UK is that the UK personal statement, since there's only one, you would have to prove why you want to do that specific course. So that would be reasserting them with co-curricular experiences that are related to your course, for example, or books that you've read for you to be inspired to do an economics degree, for example. So although the US does consist of those things as well, but it's actually a broader way of, there are actually many more aspects to a US application or a US supplemental essay, depending on each and every prompt.
Well, speaking about the application platforms that we use, I know that UCAS, we can only apply to 5 universities, but is that the case also for the US?
I can answer that. If
no, you can actually apply to as many as you want. Oh, sorry, I think I'm lagging. But you can actually apply to as many as you want. But the thing is that you have to pay like a fee for each university you apply to. But there is something called a fee with your college or your high school, and which states that you need financial aid to apply for these universities, which gives you an opportunity to actually apply to more universities, because that means that you don't have to pay for the application fees. Yeah.
So pretty much what I understand pretty much is the amount of universities that you apply to is pretty much up to your own hard work of like writing the dozens of essays, and also if you are financially willing to pay for it.
Yeah, that's correct.
Right, cool. So so just for the general audience that don't personally know our speakers, they all are attending Kolej Yayasan UEM. So I've heard that like just for a general sense, for people who haven't gone to college or university, your colleges will help you in this application process. They will they have bodies in the colleges that will help you go through this process. So I just like to ask, maybe Muiz, can you explain a bit how did KY help you in your US applications?
I think KY or your school or organization that would necessarily help you throughout the process. I think they're a very important aspect towards your application in the US, primarily in managing the behind the scenes. So there are a lot of things such as teacher recommendations, counselor recommendations, which are things that the UK application does not necessarily focus on to a large extent, but the US does. So for example, in KY, we have the University Relations Department, who consists of a few people, few really amazing people that helped me throughout the process. So primarily they helped to check my essays and also managing my Common App application and my UC application in terms of organizing whether when this teacher can actually write a recommendation for me, and actually checking that recommendation and making sure that it's prim and proper. So I guess the counselor actually ensures that everything behind the scenes goes pretty well, and basically my relations between me and my university is actually good. So if there are any issues, the university will reach out to my counselor if there are any issues, and the counselor will then come to me if I need to give an extra document, for example, or provide any additional proof of participation for an event, for example.
Well, sounds like KY has helped you guys a lot, according to what Muiz has said. Well, these next two questions are pretty much open to the floor, to the three speakers. So first of all, I know you guys also applied for the UK. So which UK universities did you guys get offers from? Maybe Hana, would you like to start off?
So yeah, I also applied to the UK. So basically, I firmed my place at University College London for economics, and my insurance uni would be the University of Wharton.
Azhar, could you also tell us the university that you got offers from?
I managed to get a place in Imperial College and University College London for chemical engineering.
As for me, I got an offer for economics in the University of College London. So yeah, just that one offer.
Well, it sounds like you guys got offers from really great schools in the UK. Some of the most wanted schools by top students in Malaysia. Well, and that begs the question: why would you guys still study US if you got offers from the UK? Is there any specific traits that US universities have, or is it just a personal preference? Azhar, do you care to chime in?
Well, I feel that in the UK, a lot of universities share, I would say, similar experiences, but in the US, each university probably has its own unique experience that I'm very excited to experience in Princeton. But I'm not trying to diminish the experience in the UK or anything like that. But maybe I'm looking forward to something more open, looking forward to finding out more about myself. And I think that in US, that would probably be the best place for me personally. Yeah.
I think I'll add on to Azhar. I think it's more towards a personal preference. I know that I have a lot of friends that prefer a more structured education experience in the UK. So they've created a pathway for you during your degree, and maybe in your second year you can pick specific courses within your degree for you to specify your area of interest even more. But I think on the basis of a personal preference of wanting to go to the US instead of UCL in my case, will probably be the things that I mentioned earlier in our webinar, which is a much more I guess liberal education in terms of exploring myself intellectually. Personally, although I want to do economics in university, and that's probably going to be my major, I still have a lot of room for discovery in another field. So as for Azhar, although he wants to do chemical engineering, he wants to do entrepreneurship on the side. So for me, I haven't discovered what my minor is yet. And I think that the ability to, have food for thought, or I guess room or space to discover, can only be provided by a US university. So yeah, that's why I'm choosing to go to UC Berkeley.
Hana, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, sure. I think I agree with Muiz, and also Azhar. mainly what draws up like the US education is like how the liberal arts education. So you can essentially choose what you want to do. So I think, but personally for me, like because I applied like under my scholarship, I'm like conditioned to do economics. And I realized if I were to go in the UK, I would have to do like pure economics, which include like macroeconomics, econometrics, which is very mathematical based. Whereas if economics in the US, per se, would be like actually learning the theory, and I'm not giving like any it's not that I'm like putting the economics in the UK at disadvantage or anything, but I'm just saying it's this is my personal preference that I think I would like to just like venture out more than just what economics is as like in numbers, because like I realized also that like a big pool of like advantage of like US education, especially like for my uni, like University of Pennsylvania, we have like a lot of like Nobel laureates. So in the sense that these Nobel laureates and people who are your professors, you can learn like first-hand experience from them. Which I would say in the UK, like most of the like these kind of like people are like at Oxford or Cambridge. So like if you're like, I mean, to get into Oxford in the UK, sorry, then it's like a great opportunity, but it's really not for everyone. So I think that the US, on the other hand, it's like you will get the same experience, but with more variety, more opportunities to like choose your classes that you want. Like, although I'm like studying to pursue like economics, I can study like philosophy, astronomy, and the liberal arts education. Where even like as I was like choosing my classes the other day, actually, I realized that there was a class on like there was like sushi and like ramen, the food of the world. Those kind of like classes that you wouldn't get in like UK education. So like for these kind of stuff, I would say that that's why I would go for the US education, just for like the sake of me being happy in my education rather than just like calculating numbers every day.
Sounds like a really unique experience. Oh, sorry, Muiz, you want to add on?
Yeah, just a bit on Hana. I think it's a really interesting point. I mean, personally, I didn't choose to go to the UK because I think it's quite known for an economics degree in the UK to be quite mathematically based. I think although like I'm all right in mathematics, but I wouldn't want it to be like the bulk of my academic or economics experience. I know that there are other sections within economics that are more, argumentative. They research things based on the society rather than the mathematical proofs between economics. I don't know. Forgive me for giving economics as the prime example, but in general, right? If you were an individual that saw economics or chemical engineering or any form of engineering as a whole in the UK, you would get a course that is provided for you. That means there is already a pathway that is created for you. But if you were a person that wanted to explore economics and specifically and psychology, for example, that door is open for you in the US. If you want to do chemical engineering and music, for example, which like if you were to ask a random person on the sidewalk, that would have like barely any relation between one another. But if you were to individually see that there is a relation between those two subjects, which have no like basic relation to one another, and you would want to go in depth into combining those two elements, you could do that in the US. So I think that's something that you could keep in mind when you think of applying to the US. You could do two really irrelevant things and just combine it and do it in your degree within 4 years.
Sounds like a really unique and fun experience. Something very uncommon to hear about, especially as a Malaysian. We know we already finished all the questions about the application process. Now let's ask the speakers on how to become the ideal candidate. So my question would be, do these universities give a lot of focus on a student's high school qualifications? And if so, do you think a student can salvage their chances by being outstanding during college? For example, this is also a personal question for me since I wasn't the best academic or the best athlete. So maybe for those who are like me, maybe they're questioning if they could salvage their chances and improve a lot during college, and maybe that would get them a chance to attend these great universities. Hannah, do you have any, could you answer on that?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, if you're talking about like high school, like standings or like extracurriculars, I feel like I would say that high school, like although they look at your academic record, it's just about like holistic. So they want to like understand you. It's not that they would like say that, oh, just because you got like B's or C's during your high school time, it doesn't mean that you're a bad student. Because like in the sense that like you said, Tariq, that you can still salvage yourself in like your college years. Let's say you go into A levels and you start scoring A's, or like even in your SPM, you already got a straight A's or something. It shows that you have like an exponential increase in your like that you're improving as a student, and that's what universities actually like look into as well. Not just that you can like maintain your good record, but it's also about like improving yourself, because like it's different from an A and A star or A plus. And like so let's say you already got like A pluses, but then you drop. So then this university will be like, oh, the student like is like slowly reduced, like not like I wouldn't say incompetent, but like they're slowly not maintaining the grades. And in comparison to someone who's actually like bucking up, like someone who's like improving their grades, I'm pretty sure they would look at the latter than the former who went down from like A plus to an A or something, because they want people who are continuously striving as well. Because like Muiz said, because they have such a rigorous like look into our academic record since like Form 3 for all of us. It really shows, like, sees how you are as a person, if you've been improving or you've been maintaining or you've been doing the latter, which is like not improving. So like it just shows your academic prowess, and I would say that you can still, there's so many ways that you can show that you're improving and that you're meant to be like within like the top people in the world, which are students in the top universities.
Well, that's relieving to hear actually. So, talking about the ideal candidate, are there any specific skills, achievements, or personality traits that one should exhibit during the writing of the essay, or during their interviews to have higher chances of getting accepted into these universities? Maybe Azhar, do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I wouldn't say that people who get accepted into these universities, they aren't a specific template of a person. So just that, what I mean to say is that you can't follow what this applicant did in order for you to get into that university, because at the end of the day, I think I mentioned this earlier, you have to be true to yourself. And if there were a specific, I guess, personality trait that I think all three of us might have in common that probably helped us get into the university, is we all have some sort of obsession towards a specific topic, or obsession towards a specific idea. So it doesn't have to be like an academic obsession or anything related to academics, but if you're interested in a certain idea or topic, then you can definitely talk more about it. You can give your opinions about it, and these your opinions will definitely shine when you're writing about it in your essays, or even talking about it during your interviews. So I feel that if you're applying or thinking of applying to the US now, it's important for you to have a general idea of what are the things that you like and the things that you don't like. What are the things that you feel that you can are very passionate about, and things that maybe you're not passionate about. So if you are applying to the US, maybe you want to start focusing on what the ideas or the extracurriculars that you're passionate about, and find activities, because in the end of the day, you are the one who is trying to highlight what you've gained from these experiences, and what I guess skills that you've gained and personality that you've learned throughout this process.
Well, from my understanding and to the audience, I guess passion is the utmost importance during this whole process. Knowing what you want to do with your life, and being smart about convincing these universities that you are going to be committed to that course. So I think it was Muiz that said that these US applications look at your grades as early as you are like 14, 15 years old. So I guess this question is a bit open to all the speakers lah. Do you guys have any advice to students in high school in terms of what they should prepare themselves for? Muiz, could you give your thoughts on that?
Okay. I think you might find this a bit like daunting in a sense. When I was 15 or 16, I never knew that I wanted to apply to the US. I think that is quite a similar case for most of you who are listening in today. If you're around 16, 17, and you just wanted to come to this webinar just to get some food for thought in terms of applying to the US. But if I could turn back time, I guess I would have focused a bit more on my academics in a sense. But I think if I were to advise my fellow juniors in high school and also high schools around Malaysia who are interested in applying to the US, is just to join a lot of co-curricular activities that piques your interest. I wouldn't say that I understand how it feels to be a bit lost in terms of finding a passion. And I was also a person who did not have a direct line of passion. Like, for example, if I have friends who are very passionate about engineering, and from high school, from Form 4 days, they were already taking part in internships that are very science related, very innovation, like based on innovation, joining as many activities that are based on designing and engineering, for example. And I was a person who joined a lot of random things just because I enjoyed them. And I think that the US application process actually allows you to be either option, whether you're a person with a spike, whether you're a person who has a lot of extracurricular activities that are focused in one specific area. If you have that, then sure, go ahead with that. But I think that the US application also provides people like me, people who are a bit lost, people who are, who's a bit unsure about what they want to do. They also have space for people like them, people like those, people who join on the basis of interest. But at the end of the day, you are expected to create this this image that you want to portray to them, like why were you interested in these activities in the first place. So if I think to summarize, it's just about joining as many activities that pique your interest on the early days, whether that be music, whether that be joining innovation competitions, math Olympiads or whatever. I think be free and don't confine yourself towards one specific course, because you might change your mind along the way. And I guess exploring a lot of things allows you to cross out different courses that you wouldn't want to do in the first place. So if you're not giving yourself that space, you're not going to be able to identify yourself intellectually or emotionally in a sense. Yeah.
Azhar, Hana, do you guys I'm pretty sure you guys also have like similar experiences with Muiz, what he said. Do you guys have any anything else to add on to whatever Muiz has said?
I think I can add on. So like, as much as you think that it's a bit daunting, to be looked at your transcript and your records since Form 3 and Form 4, I would say like don't really worry about it as well, because I know a lot of us who applied to the US. We applied, like even myself included. Although I had extracurriculars from high school, I feel like that really didn't reflect me, who I am as a person, who I am, like my current interests as well. So instead, I just use like extracurricular ECAs that I've been doing like while I'm in like KY, because I think it's a bit more like focused on like what I want to do. So it's like, it's never too late to start your application, I would say. So don't worry. And if you're unsure, and that's fine as well, just make sure you can, the only time that I would say you need to be sure is when you actually submit the application. But anytime before that, there'll always be a lot of uncertainty in your application. So it's really fine. Just like, and if you're taking this, like if you're like a Form 4 watching this, you might think that this is a lot. And I would say don't. I mean, it is a lot, but think about it when you have to. because like, I would say that I enjoyed my high school years, not having to think about uni as much. Because like I feel like life goes on like following the stages. Like you are where you're meant to be, in the sense that like if you're a Form 4, then act like a Form 4, don't act like a pre-college student, like thinking about uni yet, because that really stresses you out and you don't really need the unnecessary stress. If you're an SPM student, think about SPM. Really don't think about uni yet. So like I would say just like take it slow, because there's a lot of time, even in your pre-college, like pre-uni years, you have like 2 years to do. There's a lot of time for you to even think about it then.
Azhar, do you have anything more to add on?
Yeah, I think I do. I feel that something that's very important when applying to the US is reflection among like what you've done in your life and what you've done in high school or pre-university. So I feel that a lot of us, we tend to enter a competition, we win it, and then we just are happy that we get a first place prize, but we don't reflect on what we've learned from the whole journey throughout the process. Or even if you don't win a competition, you feel like, okay, maybe I'll just try hard next time. But we don't tend to reflect on what we can improve on and what the, I guess, things we've learned and experiences we've learned from that certain activity. So I feel that if you're a high school student or a pre-university student who's currently applying or plan to apply to the US, just do a lot of reflection. Maybe take out a notebook and write down all your activities, what you've learned. It'll really help you out later when you're writing your essays. So after doing anything in life, for example, just reflect on yourself, write your thoughts, your feelings, and it'll be very helpful for you in the future. Yeah.
I definitely agree. Like experience and losses are definitely the best teachers that one could have. Well, I have one more question. This is also like open to the floor. Can you guys describe your course that you are taking in university and how the structure is going to be like the exam, the coursework, things like that? Muiz, could you explain a bit about the course that you're going to take in a few months?
Yeah, so I'm a prospective economics major. Okay, most people who go into US universities will, in some universities, you'll be declared as an undeclared major when you enter the school. So they don't offer you, you are going to be offered a place in this university for this specific course. Although some universities do that. For example, I think in Wharton they do that. Because you're going to a specific school, for example, the School of Engineering, the School of Business, but for some university, they just offer you a place. So you have all the time in the world to decide what that major is going to be. I think in the span of 1.5 years, you can still decide what you want to do. But in terms of course structure and how it's going to be graded, I think the US provides me the flexibility of not being fully exam-based. I think major exams, I think I'll give you an example. If A levels is 100% exam based, that means you study all year round. Then at the end of the year, you have a major examination that determines about 50% of your grade for AS, which is the first year of A levels, and 50% of your grade in A2, which is the second year of A levels. So let's say that's 100% exam grade. So in the US, it's a large mixture of a lot of quizzes, a mixture of a lot of assignments, presentations, and then your examinations will probably carry around 30% to 40% of your entire grade for that specific course. So in university, basically you have a lot of classes or courses that you take each semester, and each course that you take will have an exam system of its own. So I can't summarize everything because I know that some courses would have different grading structures. So there might be courses that have 50% exam based, or there might be courses that are more exam based, like 70% exam focused. So but I guess it varies from course to course in terms of preparing for a major. Yeah.
Azhar, can you talk a bit about your course?
Well, I am planning to do chemical and biological engineering at Princeton, And as of now, for the first year, it's going to be, there are a few requirements, but it's nothing very heavy on chemical engineering or biological engineering. So for the first year, it's going to be, there's going to be like a writing requirement for you to, I guess, get a taste of how to do research papers. And then there's going to be a language requirement, which is supposedly supposed to make you more indulge in a culture that isn't your own culture. And then there's going to be a science requirement and a humanities requirement. So there's nothing very specific towards chemical engineering that only comes in the second year. But for the core structure, there are exams, there's midterms and there's finals, but there's also discussions which are graded as well. So these discussions are usually with a small group of people, around like 15 people, and there'll be like a discussion leader. And in these discussions, you're supposed to develop deep thinking on the topics you've learned throughout lectures, and attendance is considered like, I guess, a grade. You will be graded based on attendance and whether or not you've participated. So I think a lot of classes in the US have something called participation marks, which means that they want to see whether or not you participate in class, which could be a good thing for some and a bad thing for others, because people who like exams will usually just leave everything to the end and just study until the exam comes. But for these classes that are participation based, that means you have to constantly be active throughout the whole year in order to get I guess, a good mark, because you're graded on participation. So that's all from me. Yeah.
And finally, Hannah, could you also talk a bit about that?
All right, yeah, sure. So for my experience, it's actually a bit different from Muiz and Azhar. So basically because I'm going to be a freshman at Penn, where Penn enrolls students based on school. So like if you're enrolled in the Penn, you'll be like applying to a specific school within Penn, which is in a sense that the University of Pennsylvania, or in short Penn, has a couple of schools. So like the Wharton Business School, School of Engineering, College of Arts and Sciences, and like School of Nursing for undergraduate as well. So basically, these are very, very specific schools in a sense that it really depends on what you want to do. So like for me, I'm doing economics, so I'll be going to the Wharton School of Business. So essentially, my education in the US is going to be like business oriented, and also liberal arts and Penn. So basically I have like two curriculums that I have to fulfill, which is the liberal arts curriculum, where I have to do we have to take up classes like science classes, humanities classes, and also like social sciences classes. That's under the liberal arts education. And under my business curriculum, or the business like education at Wharton, I have to do like classes that are business oriented. So in the sense that I have to do like all the business fundamentals, which is like that you can really think of, which I have to do like marketing, finance, accounting, and a lot more. So like these kind of business classes, I can get a taste of all the business type of things that you want to like learn. And I would say that's like an advantage of like applying to Penn or even going to Penn, because like I know I want to do business in the world. Like it doesn't matter like what I want to do, but I like know I want to do something in business, but I don't know what. So like if you're like that kind of person, then I would say apply to Penn, because it really gives you an really like in-depth like outlook of like what a business education is. And it's not something that you like, I would say for most schools you can only get it at a master's level, but for me I can get it at undergraduate level. And if you ask me really like what am I going to learn at university, I'm not sure, because I don't know like what classes I'm going to take. And I would say that for Azhar and Muiz as well, they don't know what we're going to learn, because we don't have like a specific thing that we're going to learn or what we want to learn. It can change like every month. Like you want to take a new class, then do it. That's what I say is like, again, it's a big major advantage for like US. I would say apply US for that, because like you will go in not knowing what you're about to learn, and that's like the excitement about it. And just to end this, like my part of this, since we're also like this is like almost like going to the end of the questions before we go into Q&A. So like if you guys watch like Stranger Things, if you guys might know like Noah Schnapp. So Noah Schnapp is essentially going to be like going to Penn with me this coming fall. So if you guys watch this latest like Jimmy Fallon interview, he will be doing like a major in entrepreneurship and minor in like theater, not theater, like something about like theater or like acting, performing arts. So like those kind of things is like what you can get in the US. So you never thought that you can do performing arts and also business at the same time. So like, yeah. So I would say go into the US education with an open mind because you really don't know what's there to learn in comparison to the UK, where if I were to go to UK, I already know what I'm going to learn. I'm going to learn like macroeconomics, microeconomics, financial economics, everything economics related, as you can see. But if I'm going to the US, I really don't know what I'm going to learn. So yeah, that's what me.
Sounds really exciting and frightening at the same time. Well, that ends all the list of my questions. So we'll open it to the floor. For those who are on Zoom, feel free to ask questions in the Q&A box. And for those on YouTube, feel free to ask questions in the chat box. So, but first we'll get to the questions on Zoom. So, okay, to the speakers, you guys can just free for all, just answer if you want to answer first. So the first question we have from the audience on Zoom is, when did you guys start applying to the unis, since there's a lot of essays and etc. to prepare for?
I can start off. Yeah, I think what I mentioned earlier was that the application window opens in August and finishes in around the coming January. But there are people who start very, very early on, as early as January or perhaps the fall in the previous year, for example. And there isn't a specific timeline on whether on which timeline you want to follow, but it actually depends on how early that you want to get on. Sometimes it isn't really advisable for you to get started too early, because you only know the essay prompts as early as August, and sometimes it changes from time to time. For example, supplemental essays from universities like Columbia University, previous years they had around 7 supplemental essays, so 7 school-specific essays. But in our year, for example, they only had 5 of it. So, and some of these essay prompts, they change from time to time. So, sure, if you want to start early, you could do the previous year's questions to get yourself prepared for what you could expect in your year. But I think what you can actually start on early is your Common App essay and your UC application essay, because these Common App essay prompts or questions, they don't change very frequently, and usually they would maintain a large portion. So if there's 8 different essay prompts for you to choose one from, you these essay prompts won't actually change very drastically in a sense. So for me personally, I started around March due to my SATs, but I only started on my essays around the middle of the year, so around June or July.
Cool. Azhar, do you have anything more to add on before we get to the next question?
I do have something to say about starting early, because I did start around the same time as Muiz, which I don't know if that's considered early, but we did start like in June writing the Common App. But in the end, like towards the application deadline, I just decided to change my whole essay like 3 days before. So sometimes, it's not a good thing to start early, because you might gain experiences, or you might end up like not liking the essay at all, and you can just change the whole thing like a week before. So I wouldn't recommend doing what I did. If you want to work on your essay, it's good to have like, I guess, a rough idea early on, but not have like an essay already written out, because you already have like a whole essay written out, and then when you look at it and you don't like it, you just feel like changing the whole thing instead of working on what's already there. So maybe if you are thinking of applying to the US, write out like early drafts or just like ideas instead of a whole essay, because then you feel like puking when you read it, when you don't like it anymore. Yeah, that's all I have to say.
If I could just add on to Azhar there, I had a lot of trouble writing my Common App essay, which is the main essay, which is about 650 words. And the problem I had with it was that it was so general in terms of you could write about anything you want. These prompts are, for me, they're not very specific. They just say like um, explain a leadership experience that has shaped your view of the world or how you view things around you, or explain your identity in 650 words, and for me personally, if I were to change something about my approach towards the application, would probably be to start with supplemental essays or start with the UC application essays, which are much more focused on a specific subject. So for example, the UC essay has a specific prompt just for leadership and a specific prompt just for your creative endeavors. So this allows you to explore different essays at different aspects of your life. And I think if I would have started this way, I would have had like more practice in terms of writing about myself before going to the main Common App essay, which is about 650 words, which is a lot to think about, because this is like probably the main essay that the universities are going to look at. So I guess to summarize, start small, start with shorter essays, probably around 200, 350 words, and then go on to the larger and more lengthy essays. So yeah.
Sounds like a very, very subjective, very like there's no right answer kind of deal, right? I guess it's not that easy to talk about yourself in not such a casual sense, but in a very, you're applying to university, you're applying to somewhere where you are, that name will stick with you forever, Well, I know that you and Asa, I thought you guys went to some classes or had some extra help. So I guess that also connects to the next question. What was your preparation before the personal statement or the essay?
I think I mentioned about like reflection. So I think me and Muiz spent a lot of our first few months on the US application just reflecting on the activities we've done and what are the things we want to highlight about ourselves in our essays as well as in our application. So I think that's a very important aspect, because you can be very strategic about your essay. Maybe in this essay you want to highlight your engineering aspect, but you also want to be someone who's holistic, so you want to highlight maybe a creative aspect or something related to art, very academic about engineering. And another one I just wrote about a hobby, which is like journaling. So there are so many strategic approaches you can do it. You can go about when you're applying, and it's very important to reflect on which aspects you want to highlight. Yeah.
Does Hannah have anything to add on that? The preparation you do before the essays or the statements?
I think, yeah, just to add on a bit about the preparation, is that if, like Muiz mentioned way earlier on in the webinar, is that the thing with UX application is that it's a very research heavy process. So in the sense that I feel like for me, I had quite a time where, like, I remember like this time last year, I was like in a daze because I literally did not know what to do about my US application. I was like SATs, and I also like was trying to like put everything together, like juggling between like ECAs, my essays, and my teacher recommendations. I was like, what kind of person do I want the colleges to see in me? Because like, I would say that I was quite fortunate, like to be, especially like coming from QS, that like I think I graduated from QS with an array of ECAs that I can choose from, which were applicable in my US like application. In the sense that, yeah, so I would say that preparation mostly was about really thinking deeply by self-reflecting of like who you are as a person, like stay true, or at the same time staying true to yourself. You don't necessarily like want to just like show like these colleges like the best records, like, oh, you want that, but you also want to show them like you as a human being. Like you don't want to show like just stuff that are like flashy, nice to look at, because like in the sense that I believe you that at every achievement that you think is good, which I'm not like diminishing, which I feel like is still a good achievement, but like there will be at least another person with the same achievement, if not better. So what makes it like different, what makes you stand out, if you have like a personal touch to it. Let's say you lost, but you took that loss and it gave you to the better. Like you build up yourself confident from it or something, or like you improve yourself. So that personal touch is what these colleges want. So that's why it really takes a lot of time for you to even like before everything, before planning out your preparation and starting your essays, especially again, is to always reflect who you are, what remains true to yourself, and like what's the best thing you can show like of yourself and your personal values and your core values especially that you can show to the college admissions officer.
If I could just add on to Hannah there, this is for probably the people who are planning to apply this year, who are planning to write their essays during the summer break. I think a key issue that you have to keep in mind is to be comfortable with showing your vulnerabilities. I think you don't have to create a superficial image of yourself in your application or in your essays that you are this perfect candidate for this school. You don't have to say that, oh, I've won everything and I've done so many things and that's why you should put me in. You'd be surprised, but colleges don't want to see. There is a fine line between being confident and being very braggy about the activities and the achievements that you have done. I think what Azhar mentioned earlier on today was about reflecting throughout the process of your co-curricular activities. Why do you join this co-curricular activity in the first place? What made you resonate towards it? What made you stay in it for 2 years? Like, these are the things that they want to know, and how has it shaped you as an individual, so that it would be easier for them to identify how would you fit in their college, how would you collaborate with people in classrooms, how would you communicate with your friends, what kind of classmate are you going to be. So it gives them a better idea. I think it'll be better for you to think in the eyes of an admissions officer. What kind of student are they looking for? So if you take the perspective of an admissions officer, I think it'll be much clearer for you. So I think, these are things that you should keep in mind, especially when writing your essays.
Yeah, to add on to Muiz, you don't have to be this perfect student, because you're competing with people all around the world. So even if you're like a Malaysian debater, you're going to be fighting with Singaporean debaters, you're going to be fighting with Chinese debaters from all around the world, which is, even though you can be number one in your country, there's going to be other number ones from their countries. So you want to attach some personal development in your stories, because anybody can be number one, but nobody can have the same journey that you've had throughout the way.
Okay, cool. We talked about tests and exams during the my questions part. But one of the attendees asked, do we need to do TOEFL or IELTS exams for to get into these US universities?
Yeah, it's part of the application, because we're all like international students, so they want to know your whether or not you can speak like basic English, or what's your English proficiency level. So you do. I think it's part of the Common App in the application process. There's probably there's a tab for you to put in your language test, whether it's TOEFL or IELTS. Yeah.
Is it like is the band the required band high, or is it just like very base level English proficiency?
I think it's like 7 usually. The average is probably 7, like overall band.
All right, cool. So we'll get to the last question in the chat box. I can see is that did you guys take SAT after A levels or during A levels?
So I think I'll take this question. So in the sense that I took SATs a bit later than Muiz and Azhar. So I took my SATs in August and October last year. So it's a bit late, I would say. But it was during like the application season. So in the sense that everything happens at one time. So your UK applications, your US applications, your SATs, if you were like me, who decided to do it late, everything is at one time. So what I'm trying to say here is that, and I would say that I think this is the most common case if you were to do like A-levels at the same time. So like, not the SAT part, but like basically the US and UK application, they coincide with each other, which is essentially like the first semester of your senior year, which is like last year, like June to like December. So that's the like start of your senior year. In the sense that I would say that the most important thing, though it's not really a question, but like is to like juggle and maintain your mental health through it all. Because especially US applications, if you applied a regular decision, so it'll be until like the 5th of January. So it really is about like your persistence. And if you give up halfway, then you're really not giving yourself any credit for what you started with. So make sure you started strong, you ended strong. And how do you do that? Is that you have to like maintain your mental health, your mental strength through it all. And even if you want to give up, then give yourself a break at least. And talk to your friends, have a good like support system, because I think that's essentially what kept me going. To know that like there are people supporting me and that they will constantly remind me that it will all be worth it in the end, and it did, alhamdulillah. So although it seems daunting to juggle everything, because like even like I remember for me, I rushed my UK applications. I wrote my personal statement in 2 weeks. I wouldn't recommend anyone doing that ever. So like, manage your time wisely at the same time as well. So like, set your priorities, manage your time, and also keep your mental health in check. And like, yeah, just be healthy in the same time and like through it all. But it's doable. I would say it's doable in the sense that as last note, it is doable. We've done it. We've seen people do it, and we believe that you can do it.
All right, thanks guys for answering all the questions on the chat box. So, but before we end the webinar, I have a personal question to ask. Like, if you guys could turn back time, would you guys take a different course to go to US actually? Like other than A-levels, maybe you guys would do IB or American transfer, maybe?
I think I'll probably take IB if I could turn back time, because I don't think I'm very proficient in writing in academic sense. So all these, which will probably bite me in the back later on in university, because I don't think I'm really good at referencing or doing, I guess, research writing, which is something that I definitely have to do in the future. So I'm gonna try to bulk that up during the summer break, maybe take like online writing courses. But as for now, if I could turn back time, then yeah, maybe I would go into a pre-university course that does train you in writing academically.
I'll add on to that. I think I like when Azhar mentioned about turning back time or Antoric as well. This is, I guess, separate from a course that I would pick. I'm quite comfortable with taking A-levels. I think it provided me the space and time to choose when I want to study and choose when I want to really focus on my exams and when I really want to focus on my on my applications. So I think A-levels provided me that space and time. But if I were to turn back time, and I guess a closing note for all of you is to remember that this application process is a very it can be collaborative, and it has to come with support. I know that this application to the US is you might preconceive it as an individual application to the US, and yes, when you get those offers, it is you being admitted to that university. But I think that it would be unfair for me to say that I got my offers to UC Berkeley and UCLA because of my own efforts and solely my efforts. I don't think that's true. I think I got here today because of so many friends that helped me check my essays, people who have helped me, stay calm when things were, a bit hurriedly and a bit tense, especially during the application period, keeping me on my toes, keeping me sane and calm. So I think don't be afraid to show your essays to friends, because these people can give really honest opinions about yourself, and have a group of individuals that you know that you can trust to give honest advice about anything in general, because this application period to apply to the US is actually a very stressful, and it's a very mentally demanding period of time. So be collaborative, and don't think that you have to do it alone. Yep. Pass it on to Hannah.
Yeah, thank you, Muiz. And I actually agree with Muiz that I think if I were to think back time, I would still take up E-levels for two reasons. One, for the flexibility of it, in the sense that time-wise, I think that the timeline of E-levels, like studying, because like E-levels, the exams that we take is like the June-May series. So I think that doesn't coincide with like our application season, unless we were to take the winter series. That would have been like the same time as our application. That would be a bit more stressful. But if you're applying to a school that takes the major series, I think that's a great timeline for you, because you can like separate your academics and your application. And like in comparison to like IB, because IB is something that ongoing, you always have to be on your toes and like in check with your academics. So I think I would have still stuck with A-levels just because of like the timeline flexibility. And for the second reason is because like with A-levels, like it's like it gives you like a nice note of like not doing any more exam-based like academics. Because I feel like with A-levels, it's just a bit like, it takes a lot of like mental capacity to actually do like exam-based. So I'm just like, I know that like after I've done A-levels, and I'm glad I did A-levels, because I can start to the US with a new start. I'd be like, I don't ever have to do exams ever again. Like in the sense that like all my grades are just exams. Because I think that's what A-levels give you. You'd be like, after you're like done with A-level, be like, I'm so glad that I never have to do that again. So I think that what I would do A-levels essentially for that, just to give me out of spite that I'll be like, because it's so exam based, and like A-levels is essentially like a lot as well. So like, yeah, so it just gives me like, I'm glad that I did it again, that I don't have to do that ever again. Yeah.
Well, that's nice to hear. Well, that brings us to the end of today's webinar. I'd like to say thank you again to my friends here for making the time. I wish you guys good luck for your A-level results, and I guess have fun until you guys graduate from KY. And also good luck and stay safe in the US. For those in the audience, don't forget to subscribe to Get There's Telegram channel at t.me/getthere.co. Have a great weekend, everyone. Thanks for coming.
See you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for joining.